Beneath the gentle hush of a sleeping world, there lies another kind of silence, one that hums softly beneath the sands, the stones, and the ruins left behind by those who came long before us. Imagine standing alone in the middle of an ancient desert, the moon hanging low over forgotten temples, its pale light painting ghostly shapes across weathered carvings. The air is still, save for the faint sigh of the wind passing through columns and broken archways. In moments like this, it's easy to feel the presence of time itself, vast, unhurried, eternal. It's a reminder that everything we are and everything we know rests upon layers of mystery that stretch deep into the past. The story of our species is one of brilliance and blindness intertwined. For every discovery we make, a dozen more questions arise. Science, with all its precision and progress, has illuminated much, but not all. Beneath the bright surface of human understanding still linger shadows, enigmas that resist explanation, phenomena that defy logic, and relics that whisper of forgotten knowledge. Tonight, we drift into those shadows, into the quiet corridors of ancient time where logic falters and mystery reigns. Civilizations rise and fall like the rhythm of a slow breath. Once, powerful empires carved their presence into mountains and deserts, leaving behind monuments meant to outlast eternity. Yet eternity proved longer than they imagined. Stone cracked, names faded, languages dissolved into silence. And in that silence, questions began to echo. Who built these places? Why? And how? Many of their secrets remain sealed, untouched by centuries of curious minds. Archaeologists uncover fragments, historians reconstruct timelines, but even now, much remains uncertain, as if time itself is determined to keep its secrets hidden. There is a strange comfort in not knowing. The unknown reminds us of our smallness, of how brief our presence is in the long, unbroken chain of history. Every ancient artifact, every buried city, every undeciphered symbol is like a soft whisper from the dark, inviting us to listen, but never to fully understand. These whispers tell us that knowledge, no matter how vast, is never complete. There are edges we cannot reach, depths we cannot sound, truths that sleep beyond the reach of reason. In this quiet journey, we will wander through 100 strange, ancient mysteries, some carved in stone, others written in myth, and a few that dwell only in rumor. They come from every corner of the earth, from forgotten temples half swallowed by jungles to frozen maps drawn long before our known world was mapped at all. Some are scientific puzzles, others spiritual enigmas, and a few exist at the crossroads between both. Together, they form the heartbeat of our forgotten history, the rhythm of wonder that keeps humanity gazing backward even as we move forward. Close your eyes and imagine the first flicker of firelight in a cave wall, painting stories that would outlive their creators. Imagine the builders of pyramids aligning stone with stars, the carvers of symbols no one can read, the travelers who left traces where no civilization was supposed to be. Each story begins in the light of human hands and ends in the dark of mystery. It is in that space, between what is known and what is lost, that the most fascinating parts of our history dwell. Science offers explanations, yet not all answers bring clarity. Some discoveries deepen the mystery instead. How did ancient engineers move stones that modern cranes can barely lift? Why do distant cultures share identical myths about floods, sky gods, and celestial visitors? What drove them to carve maps of lands they shouldn't have known existed? These questions linger, soft and persistent, like waves against the shore of understanding. Perhaps these mysteries are not meant to be solved completely. Perhaps they exist to remind us that wonder is not a flaw in reason, but a companion to it. For in wonder, there is humility, and in humility, there is peace. The ancient world invites us not to conquer it with answers, but to rest within its questions, to let its silence speak. As we begin this long and gentle descent into forgotten time, Let the noise of the modern world drift away. Listen instead to the faint pulse of the past, the rhythm of chisels on stone, the breath of wind through ruins, the soft call of an age that refuses to be entirely known. We are travelers tonight, wandering through memory and myth. The journey ahead is not hurried. It unfolds like a dream, slow, deliberate, and full of quiet revelations. So, let us step softly into the first chapters of human mystery. The world may sleep, but its ancient echoes still stir beneath the surface, waiting for us to listen. And in that listening, we might not find answers, but we may find something far more precious, the serenity of wonder itself. In the deep silence of the ancient world, there were builders who seemed to appear from nowhere, people who shaped stone as if it were soft clay, who lifted weights that defy imagination, and who aligned monuments with the precision of modern engineers. These builders, whose names have long since faded into dust, left behind works so immense, so deliberate, that they feel less like the creations of men and more like the signatures of gods. Their ruins still stand across continents, weathered yet unbroken, holding their secrets tightly. To gaze upon them is to stare into the mind of a civilization that understood something we no longer do. At Göbekli Tepe, in the highlands of modern-day Turkey, monolithic pillars rise from the earth, carved 12,000 years ago, long before the invention of writing, agriculture, or the wheel. These stones bear images of animals, constellations, and symbols whose meanings remain elusive. They were placed in circles, oriented with purpose, designed by people who should not, by all modern standards, have had the knowledge or tools to create such sophistication. And yet they did. When the site was rediscovered, it shattered the timeline of human history, suggesting that organized religion, art, and architecture existed long before we thought possible. Science calls it a mystery, others call it memory, of something older still. Thousands of miles away, in the mountains of Lebanon, the ruins of Baalbek rise from a high plateau. The temple complex, later associated with the Romans, rests upon foundations far older than any empire. Among those stones are blocks weighing over 1,000 tons, so vast that even our strongest cranes today would struggle to move them. How are they transported, lifted, and set with such precision? Some say ancient ramps or levers. Others suggest forgotten technologies or collective human power on a scale we can barely comprehend. But even these answers feel incomplete. To stand before Baalbek is to feel the weight not only of stone, but of mystery pressing quietly against the mind. Then there are the pyramids, those eternal silhouettes rising from Egypt's sands. We know they were tombs, aligned to the stars, designed with sacred geometry. But the question of how they were built remains one of humanity's great puzzles. The Great Pyramid of Giza alone consists of more than 2 million limestone blocks, each weighing several tons, placed so precisely that even a thin blade cannot fit between them. Their alignment with true north, the mathematical perfection of their angles, and their celestial correspondence to Orion's belt all suggest a knowledge of astronomy and engineering that seems far beyond the tools of the Bronze Age. Even the most rational observer, standing beneath their shadow, cannot help but feel a faint, unsettling wonder. How did they know? Across the oceans, in the Andes, another mystery rests among the clouds. The stones of Sacsayhuaman and Machu Picchu fit together like pieces of a cosmic puzzle. No mortar, no gaps, only seamless unity. The Incas, or those before them, shaped and transported multi-ton stones up steep mountain paths, cutting them with such accuracy that modern lasers would struggle to match. Some walls curve and bend, as if the rock itself had been softened. Others appear to have been melted into place, their surfaces smooth and flowing. We call it ancient ingenuity, yet no one can fully explain how such precision was achieved with tools of stone and bronze. Even older are the stone circles of Europe, Stonehenge in England, Karnak in France, and the vast forgotten rings of Scotland and Ireland. They stand in quiet fields under gray skies, aligned to the solstices and the rhythm of the heavens. The people who built them left no written word, only these monuments that track the rising sun and the turning of a year. Some say they were calendars. Others say they were sacred spaces, places where earth and sky met in ceremony. But there is another possibility, one that whispers through every monolith and shadow. Perhaps they were messages, written in a language older than time, meant for us to feel rather than to read. What connects all these builders is not just their skill, but the mystery that surrounds their knowledge. Everywhere we look, we find evidence of forgotten wisdom, techniques lost, methods unrecorded, precision unexplained. Civilizations that should have been primitive created wonders that still challenge our best technology. Were they simply masters of ingenuity or inheritors of something left behind by an even older world? A world erased by time, remembered only through the stone it carved? There are myths that speak of a great civilization before the flood, a time when humans and gods walked together, when knowledge flowed freely across the earth. Plato's Atlantis, India's Dvaraka, Sumer's stories of the gods who taught mankind, all hint at an age of great builders whose memory lingers in every megalith. Skeptics call it coincidence, yet the patterns remain: impossible architecture, celestial precision, and the same motifs repeating across continents that should never have met. It is easy to assume that progress moves in one direction, that the past was primitive and the present advanced. But what if the truth is more like the tide, rising and falling, knowledge gained and lost again? The ruins of these ancient builders suggest as much. Perhaps civilization is not a staircase, but a circle, each age rediscovering fragments of wisdom buried by the last. As we walk through the silent remains of Göbekli Tepe, Baalbek, and Giza, we are not just exploring stone. We're touching the edge of forgotten memory. The air around these ruins feels heavy, not only with history, but with something almost spiritual, as if the builders left a residue of intention behind. They built for eternity, and eternity still remembers them. In their quiet endurance, these monuments remind us that mystery is not a lack of understanding. It is an invitation to listen to the stones, to feel the pulse of the past, and to wonder what truths lie just beyond our reach. The builders before time may have vanished, but their works remain like sentinels of forgotten knowledge, standing in both shadow and light. And as we move deeper into the world's ancient enigmas, one truth becomes clear. Every mystery is not only a question about the past, but a mirror reflecting what we have yet to understand about ourselves. There is something profoundly haunting about maps, those delicate sheets of parchment and ink that attempt to capture the vastness of the world. A map is both a promise and a paradox. It tells us what we know, but in doing so, it also reveals the boundaries of our ignorance. For ancient cartographers, the world was not merely a set of coordinates or coastlines. It was a living mystery, filled with sacred lands, hidden continents, and regions marked only by imagination. Long before satellites and global positioning systems, humanity charted the unknown with remarkable precision, and sometimes with impossible foresight. It is in these ancient maps that one of history's quietest yet most perplexing enigmas unfolds: the knowledge of lands that should not have been known. Among the most mysterious of these is the Piri Reis map, drawn in 1513 by an Ottoman admiral whose knowledge seemed centuries ahead of his time. Etched upon gazelle skin, the map depicts parts of Europe, Africa, and South America in astonishing accuracy. But it is one particular detail that has puzzled scholars for decades. At the map's southern edge lies a depiction of Antarctica 300 years before it was officially discovered. Not only that, the continent is drawn without ice, showing mountains and river valleys hidden beneath its frozen surface, a geographical reality confirmed only by modern seismic scans. How could a 16th-century mapmaker know this? Piri Reis himself claimed he compiled his work from ancient sources, some said to date back to the time of Alexander the Great, others perhaps even older. He wrote that he used 20 charts and 8 mappe mundi, gathered from earlier civilizations. But what were these sources, and where did they come from? If the map truly inherited its information from older records, then somewhere in the distant past existed a culture that had mapped the Earth with an understanding rivaling modern cartography. The implications are extraordinary. Perhaps there once was a civilization with global reach, long before the dawn of recorded history. The Pyre Reis map is not alone. Another artifact, the Orance Fine Globe of 1531, also depicts an ice-free Antarctica, complete with detailed coastlines and mountain ranges that align uncannily with what we now know lies beneath the ice cap. Similarly, the Bloch map of 1737 shows Antarctica divided into 2 land masses separated by a water channel, something that modern science only confirmed through deep radar surveys in the 20th century. These consistent depictions, centuries apart and supposedly based on ancient sources, challenge the tidy narrative that global exploration began only in the Age of Discovery. But perhaps the mystery goes deeper still. Across the ancient world, there are hints that our ancestors possessed a broader knowledge of geography than we imagine. The ancient Egyptians spoke of lands beyond the sea, the Greeks told of islands swallowed by waves, and early Chinese records mention traders who came from across the Great Water. Even the Polynesians, using nothing but stars and ocean swells, charted journeys across thousands of miles with accuracy that astounds modern navigators. It seems the desire to map, to know, to understand, was not the privilege of the modern mind, but an instinct as old as humanity itself. When we look at these ancient maps today, we see not only technical skill, but also an echo of something forgotten: memory. Could it be that these cartographers were not imagining unknown lands, but remembering them? Some researchers have suggested that these maps may preserve traces of a pre-Ice Age civilization, one that existed when sea levels were lower and Antarctica's coasts were ice-free. Others argue that they are simply coincidences or misinterpretations, that ancient artists filled in the blanks with speculation and myth. And yet, there remains something unervingly precise about them, something that feels too deliberate to dismiss. Perhaps what fascinates us most is not whether these maps are scientifically accurate, but what they reveal about the human mind. Each one is a bridge between fact and faith, between what was seen and what was imagined. The cartographers of old worked without modern instruments, guided instead by whispers of travelers, by oral histories, and by patterns in the stars. They mapped the world as they felt it, not as they measured it. And in doing so, they captured something that science often overlooks: the sense of wonder that accompanies exploration. Imagine, for a moment, a mapmaker at work 500 years ago, candlelight flickering across ink and vellum. He bends over his table, his mind filled with tales of distant lands, with sketches passed down through generations. He cannot confirm what he draws, yet he feels compelled to record it. He believes that beyond the edge of the known world lies more, always more. It is that belief, that deep, intuitive certainty, that makes ancient maps so captivating. They are not just documents of geography. They're portraits of curiosity. And yet, some details cannot be explained so easily. There are coastlines drawn with mathematical precision, distances marked with eerie accuracy, and alignments that correspond perfectly with the curvature of the Earth. These are not errors of imagination. They are signs of calculation, of measurements that should have been impossible without advanced tools or global reference points. If ancient civilizations truly possess such abilities, then our understanding of history may be incomplete. Perhaps we are only rediscovering knowledge that was once widespread, then lost to cataclysm or time. Modern science, cautious as ever, reminds us to seek natural explanations. It may be that these maps were the product of overlapping observations, lucky guesses, or distortions caused by copying over centuries. But even science, in its careful reasoning, cannot erase the sense of awe these artifacts inspire. They remind us that the world was known long before it was measured, that intuition often precedes proof, and that mystery has always been humanity's most faithful companion. When we trace our fingers along the faded lines of these old maps, we feel the pulse of those who came before, their wonder, their ambition, their longing to make sense of an endless earth. Each line, each curve, each symbol is a thread connecting us to minds that refuse to stop questioning. The Pyre Reese map and its mysterious kin are not just relics of a bygone age. They are invitations, gentle reminders that even in an era of satellites and digital globes, there are still edges left to explore. As the candle burns low and the ancient cartographer rests his pen, the map before him becomes more than a record of the world. It becomes a reflection of the human spirit, curious, restless, and forever reaching beyond the horizon. In their strange accuracy and quiet beauty, these maps whisper the same truth that has echoed through every age. That discovery is not about finding answers, but about keeping wonder alive. And perhaps, somewhere beneath the ice, beneath the ocean, or within the folds of forgotten time, the world still holds the memory of those who first drew its shape from the stars. Across the tapestry of human history, there exist voices that no longer speak, languages that have vanished so completely that their meaning eludes us entirely. Linear A, the script of the Minoans, was etched on clay tablets thousands of years ago, yet despite decades of study, scholars have yet to decipher it. Rongorongo, the enigmatic glyphs of Easter Island, twists across wooden tablets in patterns that seem deliberate, almost musical, but their secrets remain closed. The symbols of the Indus Valley civilization appear on seals and pottery, tantalizingly precise, yet no Rosetta Stone exists to unlock their stories. These languages, once vibrant with thought and life, now hover in silence, whispering only to those willing to imagine the lives they once carried. The loss of language is a loss of perspective, a disappearance of entire ways of thinking. When a language dies, it takes with it not only vocabulary, but the worldview of its speakers, their understanding of nature, society, and the cosmos. A word can encapsulate a philosophy, a ritual, or an emotion that may not exist in any other tongue. In the quiet absence of linear A or Rongorongo, we sense an entire dimension of human experience lost to the ages. Yet their remnants, etched in stone, clay, and wood, persist like faint echoes, challenging us to see, if not understand, the depth of thought that once flowed through them. Scholars have approached these scripts with care and reverence, using logic, mathematics, and patterns to try to reconstruct meaning. They look for repetition, for clusters of symbols that might indicate names, numbers, or common phrases. Sometimes, tantalizing hints appear, a recurring symbol that might be a deity, a sequence that suggests a calendar, or a pattern that aligns with astronomical events. Yet, every step forward seems to reveal 100 more questions. The scripts resist, as if the ancient authors intended their messages to remain partially hidden, an eternal challenge to curiosity and intellect. Rongorongo, for instance, was discovered in the 19th century, but attempts to read it have yielded only fragments of understanding. Some sequences suggest calendrical or genealogical information. Others appear to be ceremonial or narrative in nature. Still, no one has yet been able to read the tablets with certainty. Linear A, too, contains symbols that seem to correspond to Linear B, the later script used by the Mycenaeans, but the language behind it remains unknown. The Indus script, composed of hundreds of intricate characters, leaves scholars divided. Some propose it represents a language. Others argue it might be a form of proto-writing, symbolic communication rather than fully developed speech. What makes these languages particularly haunting is their intimacy. They were once part of daily life, used to record transactions, to honor deities, to communicate governance, to tell stories. Each symbol represents the pulse of human thought, frozen in time. Yet today, they remain silent, offering no answers, only the sense of something irrevocably lost. It is as if an entire civilization speaks to us from behind a veil, reminding us that knowledge is fragile, and that the passage of time is both a revealer and a thief. There is a subtle poetry in the act of attempting to decipher them. Each scholar, each careful observation, is like a quiet conversation with the past. The tablets, the seals, the carvings, they're not just objects. They're bridges across millennia, connecting the modern mind with ancient intent. Even in their opacity, they teach patience, humility, and the delicate art of listening. In the stillness of study, one begins to sense the rhythm of the civilizations themselves, the ebb and flow of daily life, of ritual, of thought. Some propose that these scripts may contain knowledge we can scarcely imagine, rituals lost to time, advanced understanding of astronomy or mathematics, even stories that might reshape our comprehension of early human civilization. The Indus Valley, for example, had cities with sophisticated urban planning, drainage systems, and standardized weights and measures. What insights might their script hold regarding their social structure, beliefs, or technology? What ideas have been sealed away, waiting for a key that is yet to be found? The persistence of these silent languages reminds us that not all knowledge is easily captured. Some truths demand not only intelligence, but intuition and imagination to perceive. Perhaps these ancient scribes intended for their words to be understood only by those capable of seeing beyond the immediate, beyond the literal. And in that sense, the mystery endures, not as a failure of science, but as an invitation to wonder, to listen, and to dwell in the quiet spaces of curiosity. In contemplating these lost scripts, one is struck by both reverence and melancholy. We see the traces of human thought reaching across millennia, but we also confront the limits of our own understanding. The symbols challenge the modern mind to think differently, to step outside familiar frameworks, and to accept that some knowledge may be partially veiled, a perpetual echo of what once was. There is a serenity in this recognition, a calm acceptance that not all can or should be understood immediately. As we drift through the remains of these vanished languages, we sense a continuity with the human spirit. Each undeciphered character is a silent witness, a remnant of lives, dreams, and intellects that shaped the early world. Their silence is not emptiness, but depth, a reminder that even in what is lost, there exists a profound connection to the past. Listening to them requires slowing down, observing patiently, and allowing the unknown to settle gently into the mind. And so, we leave the ruins of spoken thought, carrying with us the weight and the wonder of voices that no longer speak, yet continue to teach. They remind us that knowledge is fragile, that history is layered, and that the human capacity for creativity, communication, and imagination is far older and deeper than we often realize. In these quiet, undeciphered symbols, we find both mystery and meditation, an invitation to drift gently through the ages, honoring the civilizations that wrote and dreamed long before our own time. Beneath the restless waves of the world's oceans lie stories older than any written history, cities swallowed by the sea, streets abandoned to the tides, and monuments hidden beneath layers of silt and coral. The oceans, vast and silent, have long been guardians of secrets humanity may never fully uncover. They hide the remnants of civilizations that flourished when coastlines were different, when waters were lower, or when myths walked hand in hand with reality. As we drift into these submerged worlds, it is as if the sea itself breathes slowly, whispering of lives and societies lost to memory, yet preserved in quiet permanence beneath the waves. One of the most compelling examples is the submerged city of Dwarka, off the coast of modern India. Ancient texts describe it as a golden city of Krishna, a metropolis of wealth and grandeur. Archaeologists have discovered structures, walls, and artifacts beneath the Arabian Sea that correspond strikingly to these descriptions. Stone foundations, pottery, and remnants of dwellings suggest a complex, organized city, suddenly abandoned and reclaimed by the ocean. The mysteries surrounding Dwarka are not only historical, but also geological. How did it sink, and what forces caused the sea to claim it so swiftly. The site stands as a quiet testimony to the impermanence of human achievement, yet it also hints at a sophistication lost to time. Thousands of miles away, the ruins of Yonaguni in Japan lie hidden beneath the East China Sea. Massive stone formations, terraces, and staircases, initially thought to be natural, have prompted debate for decades. Were they shaped by the Earth's movements, or did human hands carve them in prehistoric times? The precision of some structures, the straight lines, sharp angles, and flat surfaces, suggests careful planning. If Yonaguni was indeed constructed, it would point to a civilization far older than we commonly acknowledge, one that existed before written records, before history itself began to be recorded. The ocean, slow and deliberate in its movements, has preserved these structures, keeping their creators' intentions both visible and tantalizingly obscure. The myths of Atlantis, perhaps the most famous sunken civilization, have captivated imaginations for centuries. Descriptions by Plato portray a wealthy, technologically advanced society swallowed by the sea in a single day and night. While the literal truth of Atlantis remains unproven, the story resonates across cultures. Flood myths, sudden disappearances of coastal settlements, and ancient warnings of rising waters appear repeatedly around the globe. Could Atlantis be a memory of real events, encoded in allegory and myth? Or is it a metaphor for human ambition and its vulnerability? Either way, the concept reminds us that the line between legend and history is often thinner than we imagine. Submerged landscapes tell stories that are simultaneously scientific and poetic. As climate shifted at the end of the last ice age, rising seas claimed entire coastlines, erasing traces of human settlement and reshaping the world map. Coastal cities that thrived on trade, fertile deltas, or strategic locations vanished beneath waves. Underwater archaeologists use sonar, submersibles, and remote imaging to map these lost regions, revealing streets, walls, and harbors frozen in time. Yet each discovery raises more questions than answers. Who lived there? How did they adapt? And why did their civilization fade so completely? The ocean preserves, but it does not explain. The rhythmic motion of the sea mirrors the rhythm of human memory. Just as tides rise and fall, so too does the recognition of past civilizations emerge and recede from collective awareness. Some sites, like the ruins off the coast of Alexandria or the ancient harbors of Egypt, have been known for centuries, yet much remains uninvestigated, concealed by sediment or mystery. Others lie in total obscurity, awaiting discovery, silently challenging our assumptions about where and when humans thrived. Each submerged ruin is a puzzle, a fragment of human ingenuity lost to the deep. There is a particular fascination in imagining what life must have been like in these now-submerged cities. Streets bustling with merchants, marketplaces fragrant with spices, temples alive with ritual, homes humming with ordinary life, all swallowed by water. The ocean freezes these moments, preserving a quiet echo of existence long vanished. Unlike monuments on land, these ruins are inaccessible to most, their silence more profound, their stories more elusive. They remind us that history is not only written in stone, but also carried in currents, in tides, in the very rhythm of the world's waters. Even today, humanity is drawn to the sea in search of answers. Divers and archaeologists descend slowly, as though moving through time itself. Each artifact recovered, a pottery shard, a carved stone, a worn tool, is more than evidence. It is a whisper from the past, an intimate conversation with those who lived and labored where the scene now stretches endlessly. Modern science provides methods to date, analyze, and interpret, yet the feeling of mystery persists. The ocean does not yield its secrets easily, and perhaps that is part of its enduring allure. Submerged cities also challenge the modern perception of progress. They suggest that advanced societies existed far earlier than conventional timelines allow. Structures crafted with skill, streets laid with precision, and trade networks spanning vast distances indicate intelligence, organization, and ingenuity that predate many known civilizations. And yet, these achievements were fleeting, vulnerable to environmental change, natural catastrophe, or gradual decay. The ocean preserves the memory of human effort, but it also serves as a reminder of the impermanence inherent in all things, no matter how grand. As we drift through these underwater worlds, it is easy to feel both small and connected, to recognize the fleeting nature of human existence, yet to sense a continuum of human curiosity and creativity. The sea, in its quiet patience, becomes a keeper of history, a guardian of enigmas, and a muse for imagination. It teaches us humility, reminding us that no matter how much we uncover, much will always remain just beyond reach, hidden beneath layers of water and time. In contemplating these lost worlds, one begins to see the ocean not as a barrier, but as a silent partner in memory. It holds the past gently, not harshly, preserving it in a quiet, slow rhythm. And as the waves lap softly against modern shores, they carry within them the stories of those who came before, urging us to listen, to imagine, and to wonder. For every sunken city, every submerged street, every stone lying quietly beneath the tides, there's a story waiting, half remembered, half hidden, and entirely beautiful in its mystery. From the earliest days of civilization, humans have looked to the sky with awe, seeking meaning among the stars. The heavens have served as both a calendar and a compass, a map of time and a guide to destiny. Across continents and millennia, people aligned their monuments, temples, and cities with celestial bodies, creating a dialogue between Earth and cosmos that still resonates today. These alignments are not merely aesthetic. They reveal a sophisticated understanding of astronomy, cycles, and geometry, a knowledge that continues to astonish modern researchers. To witness these constructions is to glimpse the mind of our ancestors reaching beyond the Earth, striving to connect with something larger, something eternal. Consider Stonehenge, rising from the rolling plains of England, its massive stones arranged with a precision that marks the solstices. On Midsummer's Day, the sun rises directly over the heel stone, illuminating the inner circle in a display that suggests both ritual significance and meticulous observation. The builders, working without telescopes or written astronomy, created a structure that records the passage of time with remarkable accuracy. Each stone was placed not merely to endure, but to interact with the sky, to capture the rhythms of the heavens in stone. It is a silent testimony to humanity's desire to find order in the vastness of the universe. Far to the south, the Nabta Playa of the Egyptian desert offers another example of cosmic connection. Thousands of years before the pyramids, this stone circle was constructed to track the movements of stars and the annual flooding of the Nile. Its alignments suggest an understanding of stellar patterns, of seasonal cycles, and perhaps even of constellations that are only faintly recognizable today. Archaeologists have proposed that these stones were part of a sophisticated calendar, marking solstices and guiding agricultural activity, yet their true purpose remains shrouded in uncertainty. The site speaks to a time when humanity looked to the heavens not only for survival, but for guidance, for ritual, and for meaning. Across the Atlantic, the ancient city of Teotihuacan in Mexico displays a similar obsession with the stars. The Pyramid of the Sun and the Pyramid of the Moon are aligned along precise axes, oriented toward specific celestial events. Streets and plazas were designed to mirror constellations, embedding the cosmos within the very layout of the city. Scholars suggest that such alignments were integral to religion, governance, and social order, linking human life with the cycles of the universe. It is a reminder that across different continents and cultures, the sky inspired the same questions, the same reverence, and the same meticulous effort to harmonize human existence with celestial rhythm. The pyramids of Giza, too, reflect an extraordinary awareness of the heavens. The Great Pyramid is aligned almost perfectly with true north, and its dimensions correspond to mathematical constants that suggest not only architectural mastery, but a sophisticated understanding of geometry and astronomy. Scholars have noted correlations between the pyramid's layout and the stars of Orion's belt, hinting at a belief system that connected human life, death, and the cosmos. These connections are subtle, precise, and deliberate, a language of stone written in the pattern of stars. Even today, we struggle to understand the full extent of this knowledge, recognizing only that it points to a mind attuned to the cosmos in ways that continue to challenge modern assumptions. Such celestial awareness was not limited to monumental architecture. Ancient peoples across the globe observed, recorded, and interpreted the skies. In Mesopotamia, the Babylonians meticulously tracked planetary movements, eclipses, and cycles, developing calendars that guided both agriculture and religious practice. The Maya mapped the motions of Venus, using its cycles to predict events and guide ceremonies. Polynesian navigators sailed vast oceans by reading stars, waves, and currents, their knowledge allowing them to traverse thousands of miles of open sea with astounding accuracy. Across all these examples, a common thread emerges. Humans have always looked upward, seeking patterns, purpose, and a connection to the infinite. What makes these alignments particularly mysterious is not merely their accuracy, but the precision with which these ancient people integrated astronomy into everyday life. Unlike modern observation, which relies on instruments, calculations, and written records, these cultures encoded their understanding in stone, landscape, and architecture. They merged observation with ritual, creating systems that were both practical and symbolic. These structures speak silently, communicating knowledge across millennia, yet they often leave modern observers puzzled, marveling at the skill and foresight of their creators. In contemplating these celestial constructions, one begins to sense a rhythm that is both earthly and cosmic. Each stone, each axis, each alignment suggests that the ancients perceived time and space differently, not as a series of disconnected moments, but as a continuum woven with the cycles of the heavens. Their work reminds us that human ingenuity is not confined to technology or material achievement, but also encompasses the imagination, perception, and reverence that allowed them to reach beyond the physical world. There's also a quiet poetry in the fact that many of these sites were built for purposes we may never fully understand. Perhaps they were temples to gods, observatories for priests, calendars for farmers, or places to contemplate the infinite. Perhaps they were all of these things at once. In their design, there's both practicality and mystery, science and spirituality intertwined. They reflect an enduring human desire to situate ourselves within the cosmos, to understand our place, and to leave a mark that endures beyond our own fleeting existence. As we move from one ancient site to another, it becomes clear that humanity's fascination with the sky is timeless. Across deserts, mountains, jungles, and plains, civilizations shaped stone and landscape to echo the rhythm of the stars. Their work endures as a bridge between the past and the present, a reminder that wonder has always been as crucial to human life as survival itself. Even millennia later, these monuments invite us to look upward, to pause, and to marvel at the minds and hands that aligned Earth with the heavens, leaving a quiet, enduring message that the sky has always been a canvas for human curiosity, imagination, and awe. Throughout history, humanity has been fascinated, and at times unnerved, by relics that seem to defy logic, artifacts that appear impossibly advanced for their age. These objects, often discovered in far-flung corners of the world, challenge our understanding of what early civilizations were capable of. From intricately carved tools to metal objects whose composition baffles modern science, these anomalies provoke questions that linger quietly in the mind. How were they made? Why were they created? And what knowledge has been lost, leaving only fragments for us to ponder? Each artifact carries with it the weight of human ingenuity, ambition, and mystery. Consider the Antikythera mechanism, recovered from a shipwreck off the Greek island of Antikythera in the early 20th century. At first glance, it resembles a simple, corroded mass of bronze and gears. Yet, when examined closely, it reveals a sophistication astonishing for its time. A complex system of interlocking gears capable of predicting eclipses, tracking the lunar cycle, and even charting the positions of planets. Modern engineers were astounded to realize that no similar device appears in the historical record for over a millennium. How could ancient hands craft a mechanism with such precision, long before the advent of the clock as we know it? The Antikythera mechanism is both a puzzle and a testament, a quiet reminder that human innovation has always been more intricate than we imagine. In South America, the golden artifacts of the pre-Columbian civilizations carry a similar sense of wonder. From the intricate filigree work of the Muisca to the perfectly shaped ceremonial gold objects of the Inca, these items demonstrate technical mastery and aesthetic sensibility far beyond what casual observation might suggest. Some objects contain alloys with properties modern metallurgists struggle to replicate, showing that the manipulation of metal was advanced, deliberate, and perhaps even experimental. Beyond their practical and ceremonial purposes, these artifacts hint at a depth of knowledge that we are only beginning to understand, a knowledge that seems to emerge fully formed, without a clear historical lineage. Even simpler tools can evoke astonishment when placed in context. The Baghdad battery, discovered near the ruins of ancient Mesopotamia, resembles a clay jar with a copper cylinder and an iron rod. While its purpose remains debated, some suggest it may have functioned as a rudimentary electrical cell capable of generating a small voltage. If so, this would suggest an understanding of electrochemistry millennia before its formal discovery. Whether it was used for electroplating, ritual, or something entirely unknown, the artifact speaks to curiosity and experimentation, qualities as human then as they are today. Around the world, similar anomalies appear. The iron pillar of Delhi, resistant to corrosion for over 1,000 years. The precise stone spheres of Costa Rica, whose formation defies simple explanation. And the carved stones of Puma Punku in Bolivia, shaped with such exactitude that modern engineers struggle to imagine recreating them. Each object is a quiet witness to human capability, standing in contrast to the assumption that our ancestors were primitive or that technological sophistication is a strictly modern trait. In these items, the past whispers of skill, patience, and perhaps even secrets deliberately preserved in forms we are only beginning to perceive. What makes these artifacts particularly captivating is the interplay between knowledge and mystery. They were created with intention, yet much of that intention is now lost to time. They suggest communities of inventors, thinkers, and artisans who experimented boldly, combining observation, trial, and imagination in ways that echo across centuries. In their preservation, they challenge our sense of linear progress, hinting that human ingenuity is not confined to any single age or culture. Knowledge appears, vanishes, and reemerges, leaving puzzles that speak to both science and wonder. Some anomalies raise deeper philosophical questions. Were these objects the result of isolated genius, accidental discovery, or a remnant of older civilizations whose achievements we have yet to fully comprehend? Perhaps they represent knowledge once widespread, now obscured by catastrophe, migration, or simple loss. And perhaps the creators intended exactly this, a way to communicate across the ages, leaving markers for those who are curious enough to see, to study, and to wonder. There is a quiet meditation in contemplating these artifacts. They remind us that human creativity is both resilient and fleeting, capable of astonishing achievements even in times we often underestimate. Each tool, mechanism, or ornament invites reflection, not only on what has been lost or discovered, but on the nature of ingenuity itself. It teaches patience, humility, and the acceptance that some mysteries may never be fully solved, yet their presence still enriches our understanding of the human story. As we move from artifact to artifact, a pattern emerges, civilization is not a simple march from ignorance to enlightenment. Rather, it is a tapestry of knowledge, experimentation, and occasional brilliance that sometimes disappears only to be rediscovered. The relics we examine today are fragments of this tapestry, tangible connections to hands and minds long gone. They remind us that the past is not simply a backdrop for the present, but a living dialogue, quietly inviting us to think, imagine, and marvel at what humanity has always been capable of. In the end, these strange artifacts are more than curiosities. They are messages, not in words, but in form, function, and design. They speak of ambition, creativity, and the relentless pursuit of understanding, a pursuit that continues even today. And as we linger on these objects, pondering their origins and purposes, we are reminded that mystery is not a void to be filled, but a companion to knowledge. In their silent, enduring presence, they teach us that wonder, like ingenuity, is timeless. Throughout history, humans have been drawn to the inexplicable, phenomena that defy conventional explanation, events that blur the line between natural law and the unknown. Some occurrences leave no trace, some leave artifacts, and some leave questions that linger for centuries. Across cultures and continents, stories emerge of inexplicable lights, mysterious sounds, and structures that challenge the very laws of physics. These anomalies occupy a space between reality and imagination, forcing us to confront the limits of our understanding and reminding us that the universe may hold knowledge we are not yet prepared to comprehend. One of the most perplexing examples comes from the sky. Ancient reports of fiery objects, glowing spheres, or chariots of the gods, observed long before modern aviation. From Chinese chronicles to Roman records, there are accounts of strange lights moving against the natural order, sometimes described as messengers or omens. While modern interpretations often default to atmospheric phenomena, meteors, or comets, some descriptions are detailed enough to defy conventional explanations. The consistency and global reach of these reports suggest that the observers saw something extraordinary, yet their experiences remain largely uncorroborated and scientifically elusive. On land, the mysteries are equally compelling. Take the Nazca lines of Peru, massive geoglyphs etched into the desert floor, depicting animals, humans, and abstract shapes. These enormous designs, visible fully only from the sky, raise fundamental questions. Why were they created, and how did a civilization without flight ensure precise proportions? Scholars propose ceremonial, astronomical, or religious purposes, yet none fully satisfy the evidence. The enormity of the work, the precision of the lines, and the endurance of their visibility suggest a knowledge and intention that continue to elude complete understanding. Across Europe, the phenomenon of unexplained megalithic engineering adds another layer to the mystery. Sites like Carnac in France, the stone circles of Scotland, and the dolmens scattered across Ireland are aligned in ways that appear to correspond with celestial or seasonal events. How these massive stones were moved and positioned with such accuracy remains uncertain. Some suggest lost techniques, while others speculate about knowledge handed down from earlier, now forgotten civilizations. The precise purposes behind these alignments, ritualistic, astronomical, or otherwise, remain unknown, leaving us with monuments that speak silently yet insistently of intelligence beyond our immediate grasp. Strange acoustic and physical phenomena further add to the intrigue. In Newgrange, Ireland, the winter solstice illuminates the inner chamber through a narrow passageway, an architectural alignment so precise it has been described as engineered light. Similarly, in some ancient temples of Egypt and India, certain chambers amplify sound, producing vibrations that seem to affect the human body. Were these intentional, spiritual tools or accidental quirks of construction? No one can say for certain, but the effects inspire awe and hint at a sophisticated understanding of architecture and the natural world. Artifacts themselves occasionally defy comprehension. The Lycurgus cup, a Roman glass vessel from the 4th century, changes color depending on the light's angle, demonstrating a phenomenon only fully explained by modern nanotechnology. Such objects hint at lost knowledge or experimental brilliance that seems almost impossible for their time. They remind us that human creativity has always flirted with what we might now consider advanced science, and that some ancient techniques remain beyond our grasp. Across oceans and deserts, similar enigmas appear in the form of unexplained constructions. The megaliths of Baalbek, the terraced pyramids of Mesoamerica, and the mysterious stone walls of Pumapunku all share a common thread. They exhibit precision, durability, and scale that challenge assumptions about the capabilities of ancient societies. While we can theorize about tools, methods, and labor, the complete understanding of their creation eludes us, leaving a tantalizing gap between what is known and what might have been possible. Even natural phenomena take on a mystical quality when observed by ancient civilizations. Eclipses, comets, and planetary alignments were often recorded and imbued with significance. Yet some events defy historical explanation. Unusual meteorological or astronomical occurrences were sometimes chronicled in myths and epics, leaving modern scholars to interpret the accounts through the lens of both science and storytelling. The line between observation and legend is blurred, reminding us that ancient people interpreted the world in ways that combined empirical knowledge with the poetic and the sacred. What unites these mysteries is the persistent tension between fact and the unknown. They force us to consider the possibility that there are dimensions of knowledge lost to time, techniques unexplained, and perceptions unrecorded. Each anomaly challenges our assumptions, inviting us to expand our understanding while also embracing the wonder of uncertainty. These phenomena are not merely curiosities. They are gateways into a deeper contemplation of history, human ingenuity, and the universe itself. As we trace these enigmas across space and time, a pattern emerges. Human curiosity has always intersected with the inexplicable, whether in the sky, across deserts, within stone structures, or through delicate artifacts. The ancient world presents evidence that our ancestors were capable of perceiving and interacting with aspects of reality that continue to puzzle us. And in this interplay of known and unknown, we find a gentle rhythm, a slow unfolding of wonder, curiosity, and reverence that invites us to look, to question, and to marvel at the persistent mysteries that shape our history and imagination. There are moments in history when human hands have created things so mysterious, so impossibly perfect, that they blur the line between faith and science. These relics, sacred, technological, and inexplicable, hold the power to quiet even the most skeptical mind. They remind us that beneath every explanation, there lies another question waiting to unfold. In the dim candlelight of old cathedrals and dusty museums, these objects whisper stories that refuse to end. The first of these relics, and perhaps the most famous, is the Ark of the Covenant, said to be a golden chest built by the Israelites under divine instruction. It carried within it the stone tablets of the Ten Commandments. Ancient texts describe the ark not only as a container, but as a vessel of incredible power, a weapon, a throne, and a bridge between heaven and earth. When it led armies into battle, victory followed. When it was mishandled, death and lightning were said to strike from its golden lid. Some modern researchers have speculated that the ark may have housed an early electrical device, a charged capacitor that produced mysterious effects mistaken for divine wrath. Others dismiss this as mere legend. Yet its disappearance from the historical record, sometime after the Babylonian conquest of Jerusalem, leaves a void filled only by faith and imagination. Some believe it rests hidden in Ethiopia, protected by monks who never speak of it. Others think it was destroyed or taken to heaven itself. The mystery remains intact, golden, silent, untouchable. From the sacred deserts of the Near East, the story moves to the quiet chapels of Europe, where another relic stirs both belief and disbelief, the Shroud of Turin. A length of linen, faintly imprinted with the image of a man, It is said to be the burial cloth of Jesus Christ. The image is not painted, drawn, or burned. It seems to exist as a shadow of light itself. In 1978, scientists were granted access to study the shroud, and their findings only deepened the enigma. No pigment was found. No clear explanation for the image's formation emerged. Radiocarbon tests suggested it was medieval, yet new studies question even that, arguing that contamination and repairs may have distorted the results. What remains undeniable is its haunting presence. Whether a miracle or a masterpiece, it evokes an emotional truth, a bridge between faith and physical evidence, between belief and the hunger to see. But the mysteries of relics are not confined to religion alone. Some objects seem to belong to an entirely different kind of sacred, the realm of lost technology. Beneath the blue waters off the Greek island of Antikythera, divers once discovered the shattered remains of a device that should not have existed in its time. Recovered in 1901, this ancient mechanism was corroded, silent, and indecipherable. Decades later, modern imaging revealed a complex system of gears and inscriptions, a kind of ancient computer that could predict eclipses and planetary positions with astonishing accuracy. Crafted more than 2,000 years ago, the Antikythera mechanism shows a level of mechanical sophistication not matched until the European Renaissance. How could such a device emerge from the ancient world, and why was its technology lost for centuries? The answer lies somewhere between genius and mystery. Perhaps it was the work of a single mind like Archimedes, or perhaps the echo of a greater scientific tradition that vanished without record. The pattern continues in a most unexpected place. A simple clay jar, unearthed in a rock in the 1930s. Inside were traces of copper and iron, separated by asphalt and sealed with bitumen. When filled with acidic liquid, the device generated a small electrical charge. Known today as the Baghdad battery, it challenges the boundaries of what ancient craftsmanship could achieve. Some researchers argue it was used for electroplating metals. Others think it was merely a storage vessel. And yet, when reconstructed and tested, it produces real electricity, a soft hum bridging thousands of years. It is almost poetic to imagine an ancient artisan watching a faint spark jump between metals, unaware that they had brushed against the invisible forces of nature long before the word science existed. Moving farther east, the sacred and the strange intertwine again in tales of relics that blend faith with legend. The spear of destiny, the lance said to have pierced the side of Christ, was carried by emperors and conquerors who believed it granted divine power. In the medieval world, possession of such an object symbolized both spiritual authority and earthly dominance. It passed through the hands of Charlemagne, Frederick Barbarossa, and perhaps even Hitler, though history blurs fact and fiction at every turn. What endures is the same story. A belief that within this simple piece of metal resides an energy beyond human control. Whether true or imagined, it illustrates how relics often become mirrors for our own longing, to possess, to understand, to connect. Beyond Christianity, relics of divine mystery appear across cultures. In Buddhist traditions, crystalline relics, known as sarira, are said to form within the remains of enlightened beings. They shimmer like pearls, untouched by fire or decay. In Hindu lore, there are the Shiva lingas, sacred stones believed to channel cosmic energy, some said to have fallen from the heavens. And in the ancient temples of Egypt, the mysterious Djed pillar symbolized the backbone of the god Osiris, a structure so sacred that its true function may have been lost under layers of ritual and time. Some theorists have proposed that these ancient symbols hid technological truths, that the Djed might represent an electrical column or resonance device. Whether or not that is true, the beauty of these relics lies in their layered meaning, physical, spiritual, and cosmic, all at once. Each relic, whether buried in sand or enshrined in gold, holds a paradox. They are tangible yet unknowable, existing at the intersection of faith and reason. Science seeks to measure, to test, to prove, but faith asks only that we feel. Somewhere between the two lies the essence of these objects. Perhaps they were created to remind us that not all power can be explained. Perhaps their purpose was never practical at all, but emotional, to awaken in us the quiet reverence that logic cannot reach. Even now, in laboratories and museums, these relics continue to speak. Scientists shine lasers across their surfaces, historians trace their movements across continents, and believers kneel before them in silent prayer. The same question echoes through every century. Are these remnants of forgotten technology or the fingerprints of the divine? As the voice softens and the camera drifts across the golden light of old artifacts, the feeling that remains is not one of confusion, but of calm wonder. These relics, regardless of origin, bind us to the same yearning that has defined humanity since the first spark of awareness, the desire to touch something eternal. They are proof that mystery itself is sacred, that questions can be as holy as answers. And as the light fades, the narration slows to a whisper. Somewhere, in the stillness between belief and disbelief, the relics rest. Golden, silent, and patient, waiting for the moment when curiosity stirs again and another seeker steps forward to ask, not for proof, but for meaning. Transition. As these relics of divinity rest in their silent glow, we turn from sacred objects to the sacred form itself, the human body, preserved and mysterious, holding within its secrets that even science still cannot fully explain. Beneath the sands, in the frozen tundra, and under layers of peat and salt, the bodies of the ancient dead sleep in silence. Yet even in that stillness, they seem to whisper stories that stretch across millennia. Every preserved face, every lock of hair and folded hand, offers a connection to lives long vanished. A reminder that the people of the past were not abstractions, but living souls with dreams, fears, and secrets we can barely imagine. Science can read traces of their lives in the strands of DNA and in the texture of their bones, but the mystery of who they truly were still lingers like a ghost between data and imagination. Perhaps no image of the ancient world captures our fascination more completely than that of the mummy. Wrapped in linen and sealed in tombs, the mummified remains of Egypt's pharaohs are both eerie and serene, a perfection of preservation that feels almost supernatural. The ancient Egyptians believed the body was the vessel of the soul, and to preserve it was to preserve eternity itself. Yet for modern eyes, their techniques raise unsettling questions. How did they learn such advanced chemistry thousands of years ago? The process of desiccation, resin use, and anatomical precision shows a depth of knowledge that rivals modern mortuary science. And when X-rays and CT scans reveal the face beneath the bandages, there's a profound moment of recognition. This person once breathed, laughed, ruled, and died, yet remains here, unyielding to time. But Egypt is not the only land where death refused to decay. Far to the south, on the windswept coast of Chile, the Chinchorro people practiced mummification thousands of years before the pharaohs. Their methods were startlingly meticulous. They removed organs, treated the skin, and even rebuilt faces with clay and paint. These mummies, fragile yet enduring, predate Egyptian ones by nearly 2 millennia. Why did they do it? What drove this early civilization, living without temples or kings, to master such intimate preservation? Some anthropologists believe it was love, the refusal to let go of family. In their careful hands, death was not the end, but a transformation, a continuation of care beyond time. Across the oceans, in the dry caves of China's Dariem Basin, another enigma awaits. The Dariem mummies, found in the shifting sands of the Taklamakan Desert, are astonishingly well preserved. Their light hair, European features, and elaborate woven clothes tell of a people whose origins defy expectation. DNA analysis reveals that they were a unique blend, not invaders, but an ancient culture connected by threads of migration and mystery. How did they come to rest in this far corner of Asia, dressed in plaid and wrapped in silence? The answers lie partially in genetics, partially in the poetic, unknowable currents of human movement. Every test deepens our understanding, yet behind every discovery, another question appears. Who spoke their language? What gods did they call upon as the desert winds howled around their graves? In the boglands of northern Europe, another kind of preservation tells a darker story. The bog bodies, naturally mummified by peat, tannins, and cold, are so lifelike that even their eyelashes remain. Talon Man, with his peaceful expression and noose around his neck, looks as though he might wake at any moment. Radiocarbon dating places him in the Iron Age, and yet his serenity defies the violence of his death. Was he sacrificed willingly to the gods of the earth? Was he a criminal, a king, or a volunteer to ensure fertility for the coming season? Scientists find chemical traces of the last meal he ate, porridge of barley and seeds, but his final thoughts remain forever beyond reach. These ancient remains evoke something far more profound than mere curiosity. They stir empathy. Across thousands of years, we sense his humanity as vivid and fragile as our own. Then there are the strange, elongated skulls of Paracas in Peru, bones reshaped in childhood, producing tall, sloping heads that defy normal anatomy. Were these the marks of high status, symbols of identity, or attempts to emulate gods? Modern imaging proves the deformation was deliberate, but the reasoning behind it remains uncertain. Some theories speak of ritual beauty, others of cultural hierarchy, and a few fringe voices even whisper of visitors not from this earth. Yet the truth, perhaps, lies in the timeless human desire to belong to something larger, to reshape the self in the image of the divine. The Paracas skulls, resting beneath coastal cliffs, remain both archaeological evidence and silent art. The body is a message carved by culture itself. Not all mysteries lie in visible forms. Deep within ancient bones and mummified tissues, DNA carries information that even the most intricate carvings cannot express. Through genetic sequencing, scientists can now reconstruct ancestry, disease, and migration patterns. They can reveal the color of a mummy's eyes or the pathogens that ended their lives. Yet in this precision, something ineffable remains untouched. For every genome decoded, for every data point mapped, the human story feels both closer and more mysterious. DNA tells us where we come from, but not why. It whispers of evolution and survival, but not of dreams, hopes, or the sacred meaning that ancient peoples saw in death. The mysteries of the ancient body extend even beyond the individual. In frozen Siberia, entire herds of Ice Age animals preserved in permafrost reveal that preservation itself is a kind of time travel. Mammoths, buried beneath ice for tens of thousands of years, still carry the scent of grass in their fur. The scientists who uncover them work in reverent silence, aware that they are witnessing something beyond science, a reunion with a world that never truly ended. As we learn to extract genetic material from these remains, we face a question that would have felt divine to our ancestors. Should life be brought back? Should the line between death and rebirth be crossed by human hands? What unites all these discoveries, from the pharaohs to the peatlands, from DNA strands to frozen tusks, is a single truth. The human body, even in death, resists disappearance. Whether preserved by ritual, by chance, or by the elements themselves, these forms remind us that time is not absolute. The ancients may have believed that the soul's journey required the body, and in a way, they were right. For when we gaze upon the face of someone who lived thousands of years ago, when we see the curve of their cheek or the faint trace of their smile, we feel the collapse of centuries. They are gone, and yet they are here. In the end, the mystery of the ancient body is not about decay or preservation. It is about memory, the persistence of form against oblivion. Each mummy, each bone, each silent figure in the earth is a message across time, that to be human is to resist forgetting. Even as science continues to study, to extract, to explain, something remains that cannot be measured. is the quiet pulse of continuity, the same heartbeat that once echoed beneath those wrappings, now echoing within us. And as the story of these ancient bodies concludes, the voice softens, leading us gently from flesh and bone to myth and memory, from what we can hold in our hands to what we can only imagine. The next mystery waits not in the body, but in the stories that have survived alongside it. Myths that refuse to die, whispering still through the corridors of time. Across every continent, in every language that ever touched the air, stories have been told of beginnings and endings, gods and monsters, floods and fire. Myths, the first echoes of human thought, have outlived the temples, the cities, and the people who first spoke them. They move through time like shadows that never fade, adapting, transforming, surviving. Science can trace the age of rocks and bones, but not the origin of these stories. Where do they come from? Were they born from imagination alone, or are they distorted memories of real events, carried forward through millennia like dreams that refuse to end? One of the most enduring of these is the story of the Great Flood. It appears in the Epic of Gilgamesh, in the Hebrew Bible, in Hindu scriptures, in Greek mythology, and in the tales of Native Americans, Pacific Islanders, and ancient Chinese. Always the same rhythm, a world drowned by divine will, a few chosen survivors, and a new beginning. In the Sumerian version, Utnapishtim builds a vast boat to preserve life from the wrath of the gods. In the Old Testament, it is Noah. In Hindu texts, the god Vishnu becomes a fish to guide Manu's ark. How could civilizations so far apart tell the same story? Some scholars suggest that at the end of the Ice Age, rising seas swallowed coastlines and memories of that catastrophe lingered in human memory, passed down as warning and myth. Yet others believe the story speaks to something deeper, a shared recognition that destruction and renewal are part of existence itself. The flood is not the only universal tale. Fire, too, burns through mythology, both as a gift and a punishment. In Greek myth, Prometheus steals fire from the gods and gives it to humanity, an act of defiance that brings both enlightenment and suffering. Among the Aboriginal Australians, the rainbow serpent guards fire and creation, shaping the land with every movement. In the myths of the Americas, tricksters like Raven or Coyote carry the flame to humankind, often at great cost. Across these stories, fire is both divine knowledge and mortal danger, the double-edged gift of awareness. Science sees in fire the dawn of technology. Mythology sees the moment we became self-aware and thus forever restless. Then there are the serpent myths, the coiling threads that bind nearly every ancient culture. In Mesoamerica, the feathered serpent Quetzalcoatl brought learning and life. In the Garden of Eden, the serpent offered forbidden knowledge. In Hindu lore, the cosmic serpent Ananta supports the universe itself. In Norse myth, Jormungandr encircles the world, destined to rise and bring about the end of days. What is it about the serpent that so captivates the human mind? Perhaps it is the shape, endless, circular, self-devouring, a symbol of time itself. Or perhaps it is something far older, a remnant of primal fear and reverence. Some anthropologists have even proposed that early humans, whose survival depended on detecting snakes in the wild, developed a neurological sensitivity that translated into enduring symbolic power. Whatever its origin, the serpent slithers through myth like a living current of memory, never dying, only shedding its skin. The theme of light descending from the heavens also recurs endlessly. Ancient myths speak of beings who came from the sky, gods, angels, or star visitors, who taught early humans art, agriculture, and wisdom. The Dogon people of Mali tell of the Namo, amphibious beings who arrived from the Sirius star system and shared sacred knowledge. In ancient Sumer, the Anunnaki descended from the heavens to shape civilization. Even in South America, the Inca revered Viracocha, a luminous creator god who rose from Lake Titicaca and promised to return. Are these stories metaphorical descriptions of enlightenment? Or do they encode some forgotten encounter, something witnessed and passed down in symbolic form. The scientific mind hesitates, but the poetic one wonders. Myths may be exaggerations of truth, but sometimes exaggeration is the only way to describe what language cannot. Then there are the great destroyers, the apocalyptic myths. Nearly every culture holds a vision of the end, a great fire, a flood, a cosmic war. The Norse called it Ragnarok, when the gods themselves would fall and the world would be reborn. The ancient Maya predicted cycles of creation and destruction, where each age ends with catastrophe and renewal. Even the Hopi tell of previous worlds destroyed by fire and flood, with ours being the latest, fragile, and temporary. Modern science speaks of extinction events and solar cycles, of impacts and ice ages, yet the cadence feels the same. Myth speaks in poetry, science translates it into physics. Both tell us that endings are not failures, but transformations. In the quiet heart of these stories lies something universal. The idea that human existence is part of a larger rhythm, both fragile and eternal. Myths mirror the natural world, reflecting the way life rises and falls, the way stars are born and die. They also serve as moral compasses, guiding behavior, explaining the unexplainable. The myth of Icarus warns against hubris, yet celebrates the beauty of flight. The tale of Pandora speaks of curiosity and consequence, but also of hope that survives despair. These ancient parables persist because they still speak the language of emotion, fear, wonder, love, and longing, the constants of human experience. Even now, beneath the surface of modern life, myths continue to breathe. The language changes. We no longer speak of gods and giants, but of galaxies, genes, and gravity. Yet the structure remains the same. The Big Bang is a new creation myth. Black holes are our cosmic underworlds. Artificial intelligence is our Prometheus, bringing both knowledge and risk. In every generation, humanity rewrites the same story. The search for meaning in the vast unknown. There is something soothing in this continuity. To realize that the same themes that shaped the minds of ancient storytellers still shape ours today is to feel the unbroken thread of human thought. Myths may not be literal truth, but they are emotional truth, a reflection of our inner world projected onto the canvas of the cosmos. Perhaps that is why they refuse to die. They adapt, evolve, and return because they are part of us. In the darkness of night, when the noise of the world fades, these stories seem to rise again. The flood, the fire, the serpent, the gods who walk among us. They speak not just of the past, but of an ancient understanding that logic alone cannot replace. Myth is the dream of the species, the song that carries us across ages. And as the narration softens, the listener is left with a quiet realization. The mysteries of ancient myth are not solved by reason, nor silenced by disbelief. They are meant to be felt, not explained, to stir something deep within, a memory older than time. The myths that refuse to die are not merely stories about the world. They are the world remembering itself. In that lingering silence, we begin to turn our gaze upward once more, toward the same stars that inspired the storytellers of old. For beyond the myths of earth and fire lie the greater mysteries of the cosmos, where ancient astronomers mapped the heavens and wondered who, or what, might be watching back. Long before telescopes and satellites, before glass lenses and equations could trace the paths of planets, ancient eyes studied the same stars that glimmer above us tonight. To those who lived in the cradle of the ancient world, the sky was not empty. It was alive, deliberate, filled with meaning. The stars were not cold spheres of gas, but luminous ancestors, watchers, and guides. In every culture, the heavens were a canvas upon which humanity painted its oldest questions. Who are we? Where do we come from? What lies beyond the dark? Night after night, generations of ancient astronomers charted the movements of the heavens with a precision that still astonishes modern scientists. Without clocks or computers, they tracked the rising of constellations, the patterns of the moon, and the slow drift of the planets. They built monuments that turned celestial motion into architecture, silent stone machines that measured time through shadow and light. Some of these constructions, like Stonehenge in England, Teotihuacan in Mexico, and the pyramids of Giza, align so precisely with solar and stellar events that it's hard not to wonder whether their builders knew more than they should have. Stonehenge, its weathered stones rising from a mist, has stood for thousands of years as a place of gathering and observation. On the summer solstice, the rising sun perfectly aligns with the heel stone, flooding the monument's inner circle with light. To those who built it, this was not simply an astronomical coincidence. It was a moment of communion between heaven and earth. Across the ocean, at the Pyramid of El Castillo in Chichen Itza, the shadow of a serpent slithers down the temple steps during the equinox. An optical illusion so precise it feels intentional, as if the builders knew how to weave sunlight into myth. In the desert of Egypt, the Great Pyramid of Giza has long been suspected of carrying stellar secrets. Its shafts point to the stars of Orion's belt and the constellation Draco, aligning the king's chamber with celestial north. The ancient Egyptians saw the pharaoh's soul rising to join the imperishable stars, those that never set. For them, astronomy was not science, it was resurrection. The cosmos was a map of the afterlife, and every star a god's heartbeat. Far from Egypt, in the cliffs of the American Southwest, the ancestral Puebloans built structures at Chaco Canyon that mirror the cycles of the sun, moon, and Venus. One wall marks an 18.6-year lunar standstill with uncanny precision. How could they have measured such a vast rhythm without written records or modern instruments? Some say careful observation and inherited knowledge. Others whisper of something more, a gift from those who came from the stars themselves. It is here, in the space between careful science and cosmic imagination, that the most tantalizing questions emerge. Ancient myths around the world tell of beings who descended from the heavens to teach humanity, luminous visitors who brought knowledge of the stars, agriculture, and order. The Sumerians called them the Anunnaki, those who came from above. The Dogon people of Mali spoke of the Namo, amphibious beings who descended from the star Sirius, teaching them about the cosmos. Long before modern telescopes, the Dogon somehow described Sirius not as a single star, but as a binary system, something Western astronomy confirmed only in the 19th century. Skeptics call it coincidence, or a later contamination of knowledge. Believers see it as evidence of ancient contact, a whisper of something vast and hidden. In the Nazca Desert of Peru, enormous geoglyphs stretch across the landscape, shapes of animals, spirals, and lines that only make sense from the air. The Nazca lines align with astronomical events, tracing solstices and stellar positions. Were they calendars, messages, or offerings to sky gods? The wind still hums across those dry plains, carrying questions that have lingered for 2,000 years. The lines do not answer. They only wait, silent and patient, like constellations carved into the earth. Further east, in the highlands of Bolivia, the ancient site of Tiwanaku stands near Lake Titicaca. Its monumental gateway of the sun is engraved with figures and symbols that correspond to solar and planetary cycles. Some researchers suggest it functioned as a solar calendar. Others think it encoded myths of cosmic creation. The precision is mathematical, the symbolism celestial. Whether through observation or inspiration, the builders seem to hold a dialogue with the heavens, a conversation still half-heard through the wind. Modern science can explain how the stars move, but ancient peoples asked why. They read in the constellations the stories of gods and heroes, of creation and destiny. To the Greeks, Orion hunted eternally across the night sky. To the Egyptians, those same stars represented Osiris, the god of rebirth. The Mayas saw them as the heartstones of creation, placed by divine hands at the dawn of time. Across cultures, the heavens reflected the human soul, its struggles, its aspirations, its longing for meaning. It is tempting to separate myth from astronomy, to say that one is science and the other story. But in truth, they were never apart. Ancient astronomers were priests, poets, and mathematicians all at once. When they measured the solstice, they also measured faith. When they tracked Venus, they also tracked love and renewal. For them, knowledge and reverence were the same pursuit. The sky was both laboratory and temple. In recent centuries, as we've turned our telescopes outward, the same curiosity persists. We search the stars for patterns, for life, for echoes of ourselves. Modern scientists listen for signals across the cosmic sea, not unlike the priests of Babylon who once stood on ziggurats, watching for divine signs in the sky. Whether through radio waves or ritual, the question is the same. Are we alone? And so, the myths of star beings endure, not merely as ancient superstition, but as metaphors for contact, guidance, and transformation. Perhaps these stories were never about literal visitors, but about the awakening of consciousness. To look at the stars and feel small, yet connected, is itself a form of revelation. The ancients may have clothed this feeling in the language of gods and messengers, but the essence remains unchanged. Every generation finds its own way to tell the same story, that knowledge descends from above, that light comes from the heavens, that we are made of the same dust that glows in the night sky. As the centuries unfold, our relationship with the cosmos deepens. Satellites orbit where myths once soared. Spacecraft trace the paths once imagined by priests and dreamers. And still, the wonder persists. The night sky remains the oldest mystery and the most familiar comfort. To gaze upon it is to see both history and destiny, the record of where we have come from and the promise of where we might go. In the end, the cosmic connection is not only about stars or beings or technology beyond comprehension. It is about the thread that binds the universe to the human heart. The ancients looked up and saw gods. We look up and see galaxies. But perhaps the difference is only in language. What they called divine, we call infinite. What they called heaven, we call the cosmos. Both words mean the same thing, a vast, unknowable home. And as the gentle voice of the narrator fades, the story turns from the stars above to the relics left behind on Earth, strange artifacts and devices that seem too advanced for their time. The next chapter of mystery begins not in the heavens, but in the dust of forgotten workshops, where objects whisper of lost knowledge and time out of place. Scattered across the world, hidden in museum drawers and ancient ruins, are artifacts that seem to mock the timeline of human progress. They are known as OOP arts, out-of-place artifacts, objects that appear too advanced, too refined, or too mysterious to belong to the era in which they were found. Some are hoaxes, others misinterpretations, but a few remain genuinely perplexing, caught in the delicate balance between science and legend. Each one is a whisper from a forgotten chapter of history, a puzzle piece that doesn't quite fit, a reminder that perhaps our understanding of the past is not as complete as we believe. The story begins in the 1930s, in a small town near London, Texas. A group of workers discovered a hammer encased in stone, not fossilized around it, but embedded within it. The rock was said to be more than 100 million years old, while the hammer's design was unmistakably modern, with a metal head and wooden handle. The London hammer, as it came to be known, quickly became a symbol of mystery. How could a tool like this exist long before humans even appeared? Scientists later suggested that the stone around it was not ancient bedrock, but a concretion formed around a more recent object. And yet, the story endures, because even a small crack in certainty is enough to invite wonder. From the soil of Texas, the mystery drifts east to the sands of Egypt, where another artifact stretches the boundaries of explanation, the Saqqara bird. Unearthed in 1898 from a tomb near Saqqara, the small wooden figure resembles no known species. Its wings are shaped with aerodynamic precision, and its tail is vertical, like that of a modern airplane rather than a bird. Could it have been a toy, a ritual object, or, as some dreamers propose, a model of ancient flight? When replicas are tested in wind tunnels, they glide surprisingly well. The Egyptians were known as master engineers, but this small carving suggests they may have understood the principles of flight, or at least been inspired by them, far earlier than history admits. Traveling farther through time and imagination, we come to the depths of the sea, where divers once found a relic that changed our view of ancient technology, the Antikythera mechanism. Discovered off the coast of Greece in 1901, it lay corroded within a Roman shipwreck for 2,000 years. When scientists examined it, they realized it contained a complex system of gears, at least 30 intricate bronze wheels, designed to calculate celestial events. It could predict eclipses, track planetary movements, and chart the cycles of the moon. For centuries, nothing like it existed again until the clockmakers of medieval Europe. How did ancient Greek artisans craft such a device? Was it a solitary genius, or evidence of a larger tradition of lost engineering? Even today, as researchers recreate its gears with 3D models, the mechanism feels impossibly modern, its rusted teeth biting gently into the mystery of time itself. In the dry lands of Iraq, another enigma hums quietly beneath the dust, the Baghdad Battery. Found in the 1930s near modern-day Baghdad, these clay jars contain copper cylinders and iron rods, separated by asphalt stoppers. When filled with acidic liquid, the vessels produce a small electric current. If they truly functioned as batteries, they predate modern electricity by 2 millennia. Were they used for electroplating metals, as some theorize? Or were they simply storage vessels with a coincidental resemblance to batteries? No one can say for sure. What makes the Baghdad Battery so captivating is not its size or complexity, but its suggestion that our ancestors may have brushed against scientific discovery long before history was ready to record it. Some OOP arts blur the line between craftsmanship and legend. In the ruins of India, the Iron Pillar of Delhi stands over 7 meters tall, a monument that has defied corrosion for more than 1,600 years. Forged of nearly pure iron, it has endured monsoons, pollution, and centuries of exposure without rusting. Modern metallurgy has only recently understood the process that allowed it to survive, a thin protective layer of phosphorus and iron-hydrogen compound that formed naturally over time. Yet, how the ancient blacksmiths achieved such purity of metal remains uncertain. To the faithful, it is a miracle. To scientists, a mystery of skill beyond its time. Then there are the delicate artifacts that seem almost whimsical. Crystal skulls carved with impossible smoothness, ancient lenses that magnify with clarity, or tiny gold figures from Colombia shaped uncannily like modern airplanes. Each has been studied, debated, and dismissed by skeptics. Yet the fascination persists. There is something poetic in the idea that ancient artisans, working by candlelight, could shape objects that mirror technologies thousands of years away. It speaks not only to the ingenuity of the human mind, but to its timeless imagination. Skeptics remind us, of course, that anomalies are not proof of lost civilizations or alien engineers, only of our limited knowledge. OOP arts often expose the gaps in our understanding rather than rewriting history itself. But those gaps are important. They remind us that discovery does not move in a straight line. Knowledge is not a ladder. It is a web. Ideas emerge, vanish, and reappear. What was once known can be forgotten, and what is forgotten can be rediscovered, as though time itself has memory, waiting for us to catch up. And yet, there is something haunting in these misplaced relics. Each one invites us to imagine a world older and more complex than the one described in textbooks. Perhaps they suggest history is not a story of steady progress, but of cycles, of rises and falls, of knowledge gained and lost, of moments when light flickers and fades, only to be rekindled again. As the narrator's voice softens, the focus drifts from the objects themselves to the invisible hands that made them. The hammer, the bird, the mechanism, all share a common thread: the human desire to understand, to create, to transcend limitation. These artifacts are not just technological anomalies. They are reflections of our oldest instinct, curiosity. Whether explained by science or left in the realm of mystery, OOP arts remind us of the beauty of not knowing. They invite humility, wonder, and the awareness that every certainty we hold may someday be challenged by a single, silent object found in the dirt. And as the camera lingers on a final image, a rusted gear turning in the light, a hand brushing the dust from a carved stone, the transition unfolds naturally. From these strange artifacts and forgotten inventors, we move to the people themselves, the ancient thinkers, dreamers, and guardians of wisdom whose knowledge may have outlived their names. The story continues with those who kept the flame alive, the lost knowledge keepers. As we approach the final stretches of our journey through these ancient mysteries, it becomes clear that history is less a series of solved puzzles than a vast, living tapestry. Each stone, artifact, map, or celestial alignment is a whisper from the past, carrying stories that challenge our assumptions and stretch the imagination. The unknown has always walked alongside the known, guiding curiosity, inspiring wonder, and reminding us that human history is more than dates and events. It is a collection of questions, insights, and unfinished tales. Even the most carefully cataloged discoveries leave threads dangling, inviting reflection and reverence. The true beauty of these mysteries is not merely in the solutions, but in the lingering presence of the unsolved. Göbekli Tepe rises in silent authority. The Nazca lines stretch across the desert. The Antikythera mechanism sits quietly in its display case. All remind us that human ingenuity is as boundless as it is fleeting, that civilizations can flourish and vanish, leaving behind traces we may never fully interpret. And yet, there is peace in this uncertainty. It allows the mind to wander gently, to consider the ingenuity of people long gone, and to marvel at the delicate balance between creativity, survival, and the unknowable. As night deepens, we realize that these mysteries are not just objects of study. They're companions to thought and imagination. They teach patience, humility, and wonder. They connect us to the countless generations who came before, to their hopes, beliefs, and quiet genius. And even when answers elude us, the journey through history's enigmas leaves a subtle calm, a recognition that mystery, like time itself, can be eternal, patient, and quietly magnificent. Finally, as our journey through ancient enigmas draws to a close, the world seems a little larger, a little more mysterious, yet also profoundly interconnected. The stones, artifacts, maps, and celestial alignments we have encountered remind us that human curiosity has always been timeless. Across continents, ages, and cultures, people reached beyond the known, striving to understand, to create, and to leave something that might endure. The echoes of their efforts remain, even when their meanings fade, offering a bridge across the millennia. In reflecting on these mysteries, we see that the past is not simply a record of what was, but a mirror of our own curiosity, imagination, and wonder. The unanswered questions, the inexplicable constructions, the lost languages, and the submerged cities are not failures of comprehension. They are invitations. Invitations to slow down, to think deeply, and to experience awe. They remind us that life is not only about solutions and explanations, but also about the quiet, meditative beauty of discovery itself. And so, as the night carries on, we leave these mysteries not with a sense of frustration, but with gentle reverence. The past is a companion, not a puzzle to be hurriedly solved. In its silence, it teaches us to listen, to dream, and to marvel at the enduring wonder of human history. The world remains full of questions, and that is a gift. The comfort of knowing that curiosity, like the stars above, is infinite, patient, and quietly beautiful.